Hello, Mr. Gidoyuat. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Somalia cast absentee ballots as they closely monitor the U.S. presidential campaign. Mozambique's Electoral Commission declares ruling party candidate Daniel Chapo the winner of the presidential election. And in our entertainment report, Sierra Leonean hip-hop artist Kao Denero tells our Jackson Mvunganyi about his music. In many U.S. presidential polls, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are in a dead heat in the race for the White House. When voters head to the polls on November 5th, they will also be choosing who controls the U.S. Congress. Whatever political party ends up controlling the House of Representatives or the Senate will be key to a new president enacting his or her legislative agenda. VOA's congressional correspondent Katherine Gibson looks at key races around the country.
Donna West, a longtime Democratic activist, does not just organize voters for Vice President Kamala Harris from her Las Vegas, Nevada garage. She says she is also fighting to make sure Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen keeps her U.S. Senate seat.
The more we can get out and talk to the voter, the more confident I am that we'll restore Jackie to the Senate and take that majority.
Nevada is one of just a handful of U.S. states nationwide with competitive Senate races that will determine if Democrats or Republicans hold the majority. Democrats currently hold a slim majority with 51 seats. Rosen's challenger, Sam Brown, who was injured while serving in Afghanistan, says it is time for change in Washington.
We've got an economy to go square away. And look, there's things we can do, from the housing to our energy policy. We've got to go after this border situation.
In Texas, traditionally a stronghold for Republicans, polls show a close race between Democrat Colin Allred and Republican Senator Ted Cruz. In their debate last week, Allred challenged Cruz on the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
This election is his accountability. You cannot just be patriotic when your side wins.
Cruz pushed back on that argument.
You don't hear him talking about the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots that burned cities across this country.
And in the rural state of Montana, Democratic Senator John Tester faces a challenge from Republican Tim Sheehy. A delegate said that many voters in the state may vote for former president and Republican candidate Donald Trump, but will keep a Democrat in the Senate.
Senator Tester has delivered for us in terms of the Farm Bill, and we are way too smart to let that go.
Tim Sheehy is a real veteran. He is a combat hero. He is a Navy SEAL.
Control of the U.S. House of Representatives could also potentially flip, moving from Republican control to the Democrats. All 435 House seats are up for re-election this year. Katherine Gibson, VOA News.
Some Somali Americans living in Somalia are closely monitoring the U.S. presidential campaign, focusing on foreign policy and investment in Africa, while participating by casting absentee ballots. Reporter Abdul Qadir Zubair spoke to two of them in Mogadishu and has this report with Abdulaziz Asman, narrated by Anthony Labruto.
Mohammed Dahir Farah leads the Somali American Network Association, or SANA, an organization that fosters connection between Somali Americans and Somalia. A decade ago, he returned to Somalia from the U.S., but remains involved in American politics, staying informed about the country's ongoing political debates. Farah describes the absentee voting process as straightforward.
I casted my vote as an absentee ballot. We use a website called FBCA. You fill a form, you sign the form, and it has an address that you mail to this form, and you're good to go. That's the instruction and the direction we received from the embassy in Somalia and Kenya, both. I did it a month ago, and I believe everything is set.
Farah says that Somalia faced challenges due to shifts in U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding security aid. Drawing from his experiences both as a Somali American and his role within his community, he said that he is concerned that a new administration may not continue to support Somalia's counterterrorism efforts.
Foreign policy, in terms of security, one experience I had during my time in Africa or Somalia as an American and also as the head of Somali American Network Association is how the Somali government suffered when the security support has been cut by the U.S. government. It was during Trump time, I remember.
Farah said that around 4,000 Somali Americans currently live in various regions of Somalia, with many serving as business owners, consultants to the Somali federal government, and employees of international organizations. Among them is Mohammed Aden Dini, a human rights activist and Somali parliament member based in Mogadishu. He says a key issue expats in Africa during this election is the need for the U.S. to maintain its investments in Africa and strengthen relations with African nations.
And Africans, they expected that the United States will do a lot of investment. So when you talk to the grassroots and also the African people who are African descent, American people who are African descent, they also want to see U.S. to invest more in African continents.
In a recent interview with VOA in Mogadishu, U.S. Ambassador to Somalia, Richard Riley, said the U.S. is Somalia's largest donor and security partner, providing tens of billions of dollars over the years in personnel, equipment, and funding. Praising the contribution of Somali Americans in the U.S. and also of those who have returned to Somalia to rebuild their homeland.
We're very proud to have over 150,000 Somalis who've come to our country. They're an enormous benefit to our country and to your country. Many have come back to help build the nation here. So we're delighted that they are here, they are participating. So I would say maintain the hope. It's very important and it's real.
Despite being thousands of miles away from U.S. elections, Somali American expats not only cast their votes for their second home in the U.S., but also play a role in the growth and stability of their homeland, Somalia, bridging both worlds and shaping the future. For Abdul Qadir Zubair in Mogadishu, Somalia, and Abdulaziz Osman, Anthony Labruto, VOA Africa.
Continuing our series on African-born Americans, VOA's Philip Alexiou introduces us to a woman who seems to be the queen of all trades. Margaret Duru is the founder, president, and executive director of Wetati Academy, an economic empowerment educational nonprofit organization. With the power of her husband's support, she expresses what they want to see in the next U.S. president.
I was born in Nigeria so many years ago. And it wasn't an easy journey or easy background, but I'm a firm believer that where you're born and the challenges is inconsequential to who you could become, really, you know. So I went to school in Lagos. Then right after graduating high school, I came to America.
Margaret Duru has done just about everything. She's a motivational speaker and author of several personal and business development books, including a bestseller, recognized around the U.S. and internationally for her philanthropy. She has a flurry of awards, even honored with a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. She's also founder, president, and executive director of Wetati Academy, a nonprofit organization that partners with the University of Maryland, teaching a curriculum in schools focused on financial literacy and the basics of starting a business.
Wetati Academy used to be called Women Empowered to Achieve the Impossible before we turned it into a school per se. The reason is because I had all the degrees that anybody would want to get, but I didn't know how to fold a piece of paper to form a box. I just said to myself, this doesn't make any sense. So God, what did you want me to do? So Wetati Academy came up as a result of an answer to the frustration that I was having. So I knew that there was a missing link between what we're taught in the classroom and what we need to make it in the school of life. So that's when I said, okay, what is so frustrating to me that I can turn into an inspiration that I can use to lead others. I say what you are doing right now is not an indication of where you end up, but you need to appreciate those small beginnings of life.
And part of Margaret's beginning began with her best friend and husband, John, another educator who retired from teaching in 2019. He's also been a youth counselor in Washington, D.C. Today, he helps Margaret with the academy, but Margaret says he's been the rock that's held her together.
Without his love for me is so unconditional that I don't have to wonder where he stands.
The very first day I saw her, she came to the Model UN. So when I saw her, I was excited. She told me about herself and all that. So I told her, oh, I found a wife.
That's what he told me the same day.
The first day I saw her.
He told me, he said, if it's not me, nobody else.
I said, you're my wife. I'm going to marry you.
38 years later, they're still married and politically active. In fact, they have been for a long time. The two of them have even helped get the local mayor elected twice. And now they're zeroed in on this year's presidential election.
I believe in capitalism because capitalism encourages you to go out there and work hard. So, for capitalism to continue to work, we have to find a way to be inclusive about it.
Whoever is the person that makes it as the next president of America, they need to have some compassion. They need to have some kind of way to resolve the immigration problem. I'm not for people just trooping in and things happening one way or the other and people not doing whatever they have. Any country that doesn't have order is a question of time they're going to defunct. So I am saying, even though I believe that foreigners or immigration people should be given some chance and opportunity, there need to be some laws guiding how that is done so that both the people receiving and the people giving, there'll be some kind of common ground for everybody.
Philip Alexio, VOA News, Washington.
That was Margaret Duru, founder, president, and executive director of Wetati Academy. Official results from Mozambique's election show that ruling party candidate Daniel Chapo won the presidential election. The opposition says the poll was rigged and is calling for protests. VOA Nairobi Bureau Chief Maria Madiallo covered the election and has this report.
Frelimo Party candidate Daniel Chapo won the presidential elections with 70.67% of the vote, according to results released Thursday by Mozambique's National Electoral Commission. Independent candidate Venancio Mondlane finished second with 20%. The candidate for Renamo, Mozambique's traditional main opposition party, won less than 6% of the vote. The result cements the power that the ruling Frelimo party has held since Mozambique won independence nearly 50 years ago. Some analysts predicted Frelimo would hold on to power, despite the enthusiasm young voters expressed for Mondlane ahead of the vote.
The terrain is already prepared. Regardless of what we see, the enthusiasm, the dynamism of the young people that are rallying behind this opposition candidate, but we know that the status quo will prevail.
Mondlane has said the vote was rigged. As his camp was building a case to challenge the election results, two prominent members of his party were shot and killed last weekend. While some say the shootings were politically motivated, current President Filipe Nyusi, who condemned the killings, warned against jumping to conclusions. Earlier this week, police fired tear gas and bullets at opposition protesters in Maputo. While observer missions from the European Union and Southern African Development Community have yet to give final assessments of the October 9th election, the EU mission said this week that some of its 179 observers were prevented from observing tabulation processes in some districts, provinces, and at the national level. But some analysts say the political rise of relatively young candidates like 47-year-old Chapo and 50-year-old Mondlane is still a good development for Mozambique.
The youth have arrived in Mozambique, and I think that that's a good thing for Africa. And this is the first time that we see a turnover from the liberation liberationist group in Mozambique. And so this is good. I hope that they bring youthful energy and they focus on the issues that are important to young Mozambicans.
Kweku Nwama says those included poverty and insecurity issues in the northeast, where the government is battling insurgents in the gas and oil-rich Cabo Delgado province.
What's going to happen in Cabo Delgado? We've seen the SADC troops leave. Now you have Rwandan and Tanzanian troops over there. Are they going to stay? In terms of poverty, what's the plan ahead? The World Bank shows that Mozambique's real poverty numbers around like 62%. People need jobs. People need to have some promise, some help from the state.
Meanwhile, runner-up candidate Mondlane has called for 2 days of national standstill and peaceful protest. A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department called on Mozambicans to reject violence and to use peaceful means to pursue electoral grievances. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Nairobi.
Many European Union countries are calling for the bloc to clamp down on migration amid a surge in support for right-wing political parties. But Spain is bucking the trend and insists Europe's aging population needs controlled migration to boost its economy. Henry Ridgewell explains.
More than 42,000 irregular migrants have arrived in Spain so far this year, a two-thirds increase from 2023. Most arrive on Spain's Canary Islands, more than 100 kilometres from the African coastline. Last year alone, around 6,000 migrants died attempting the crossing, according to human rights groups. But for many, the dangers are outweighed by the dream of a new life in Europe.
If you make it here, the only thing you have to do is go to class, to keep learning, to talk to people. You have to be an open person, especially as an immigrant. You have to make a double effort, and that's what we're doing now.
For the migrants, there is hope of a better life. The Spanish government also sees economic potential. Like many Western countries, Spain's population is aging fast. It desperately needs young workers to build the economy and pay taxes. But the country's birth rate last year hit its lowest level ever recorded at under 1.2, among the lowest in Europe. Speaking at a European Union leaders' summit Thursday, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said immigration is vital.
Our present and future competitiveness, the economic growth of our country, the sustainability of our welfare model also depends on migration. We must manage migration flows from the perspective of a demographic challenge.
But amid a rise in support for far-right parties across Europe, many EU member states want tougher migration controls. Striking a balance won't be easy.
We are a country with strong values, and we want this balance between controlling migration and offering asylum seekers a legal way to enter and to respect their rights. We need that. Here in Spain, without migrants, we have no fruits on the supermarkets. Possibly the economy simply could not function properly. We need migrants.
As part of its new approach, Spain is drafting a strategy for Africa, focusing on what it describes as the economic and social transformation of the continent. While seeking to facilitate legal migration, Spain is trying to stop irregular migrants arriving on its shores. It wants the EU's border agency Frontex to seek permission to patrol African coastlines to intercept the migrant boats. Many migrants are traumatized by the journey.
I want to give some advice to my countrymen and my friends. Don't come in a small boat because they are very dangerous.
Spain wants a long-term solution to migration that works for Africa and for Europe. But the hope of a better life continues to draw tens of thousands of people across these dangerous seas. Henry Ridgewell, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Sierra Leonean hip-hop artist tells us about his new music. We'll be back.
Women are leading change for a safe and prosperous Sahel. That's according to the UNDP, the United Nations Development Program. However, UNDP notes that women also continue to face numerous challenges stemming from deeply ingrained social-cultural norms and structural barriers. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we hear about their journeys and what experts say they can do for greater gains when fighting for peace and security on the continent. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Mvunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has fired 3 constitutional court judges over a 2016 ruling that favored a political opponent. Hichilema alleges that the judges engaged in misconduct over a ruling they made when he was an opposition leader 8 years ago. The president fired the judges on the recommendation of a judicial commission that enforces a code of conduct for judges. Russian President Vladimir Putin presided over the closing session of a summit of the BRICS bloc of developing economies on Thursday, hailing its role as a counterbalance to the West. The 3-day summit in the Russian city of Kazan was attended by leaders or representatives of 36 countries, including South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. And Nigeria has released on humanitarian grounds Tigrayan Gabarian, an American citizen held for the past 8 months on cryptocurrency money laundering accusations. Gabarian was the chief compliance officer for Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange. Nigeria accused Gabarian and Binance of using Binance platform to launder as much as $35 million, a claim Gabarian and Binance denies. It's time for our entertainment report. And joining us now is Jackson Mvunganyi, host of VOA's Upfront radio show with the latest on a West African hip-hop star. Hello, Jackson.
Hello, Esther. Sierra Leonean hip-hop artist Kao Denero gained popularity for his role as a social commentator and anti-corruption advocate. He was recently appointed as a special envoy for entertainment and investment by Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio. I asked him about his latest project, Heroes, and how his music and message has evolved over the years. Let's check it out.
You know, you can tell definitely by the growth process of my creativity, you know. 10 years ago, I was thinking about making the next hit song, like, you know, just really trying to hit the clubs, hit the radio station, you know, without, you know, really taking some time to it. Now I want to make timeless music. You know, I want to make music that's going to be here for generations, you know, music that will never fade away. You know, people that I listened to that inspired me to do music are the people like the great late Bob Marley, you know, the late great Tupac Shakur, all these people that stood for something, you know, they were not just doing music for merriment, you know, so that's the kind of path in a positive light, you know. That's the same thing I'm trying to do with my own creativity. I feel like I grew from where I was. You know, now it's more matured music, but I'm still a fierce MC. You know, certain elements of the game I'm not letting go to where, you know, when it comes to battles, it comes to really showing that, you know, I'm one of the best in the continent. That's always with me.
Yeah. So, and at this point, as a veteran artist, what advice would you give to young African artists who are trying to balance, you know, commercial success, but also creating socially conscious music?
You know, don't be a one-night like a one-hit wonder guy, you know. Don't just do music for the moment. You have to really dig deep, you know. When you do music that's coming from your soul, you know, it's timeless, you know, because people going to be relating to it forever. You know, I know we all want to do the bling bling. We all want to do something like microwave music that's going to come hit now and then you pass away. You know, I will advise them to really be committed to their craft, you know, to really just have a clean spirit and work hard. You know, you really got to put in a lot of work. Like you said it yourself, you've known Kao Denero for the longest, you know. I think when I was made the entertainment ambassador, a lot of people thought that would be the end of the music career. Like, oh, nah, Kao is about to really hang his boots up. You know, so when I was working on the Heroes album, I have a point to prove. You know, to a lot of people that know, working at the office as the entertainment ambassador, you know, trying to make policies, having meetings, doesn't change anything when I go back to the studio.
Absolutely.
The next generation, you know, and I feel like there's a gap, you know, like my generation, you know, we had a few people that really was like invested in learning about our history, you know, and about our past. You know, we pride ourselves, you know. I was born in 1980, you know, so pretty much that was the time when the Wailers were still rocking the
absolutely.
You know? So 85, Peter Tosh and them. Then in the early 90s, you had Lucky Dube, you know. So we know about consciousness and music that stands for something.
Absolutely.
But this generation today, you know, there's a gap. They have lost.
Sierra Leonean hip-hop icon Kao Denero. Esther, I'm quite sure you're going to enjoy his music. That was our entertainment report. Esther, back to you.
Thanks, Jackson. Be sure to watch our entertainment report every Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.